Hi, I'm Felicia.
And I'm Michaela, and here's our review of Sumeria.
Okay, so Sumeria is an area control game with lots of strategy. The point of the game is to get the most influence tokens as possible. There are 4 types of influence tokens that you can get: economics, military, political, and religious. The difference between them isn't important, but at the end of the game, the more you have of one type, the more points you'll get. So for example, if you have 7 military tokens, then you make 28 victory points. But if you only have 2 economics, then you only make 3 victory points. The rulebook has the chart so that you can check it at the end of each game. So the best strategy is to try to get the most of one type of token.
The setup is pretty simple. Each player chooses a color and receives pawns of that color. These pawns represent merchants. There are 8 city-state cards that represent the 8 areas on the board. These cards are placed randomly at the bottom of the board. Above the 3 left cities, influence tokens are placed randomly. The 3 cities that are on the left side are the most important ones. Basically, the player who has the most merchants in those cities after 3 turns wins those influence tokens for that round. The game consists of 6 rounds of 3 turns. At the top of the board there is a marker that you move after each turn. Once it reaches 3 turns, that round is over. The last thing players do before the game starts is place some of their merchants on the board, depending on how many players are playing. Now the game is ready to begin.
Players take turns placing merchants, removing merchants, and moving merchants of their color. They can only do one of those actions each turn. And don't forget, you only have 3 turns, so your actions are very important. Depending on what you do, the city-states moves up and down. If you move your merchant into a new state, that state card moves up. If you place a new merchant in a state, that state card moves up. If you remove a merchant from a state, that card moves down. So you see how the game changes every turn? So what you're trying to do is have as many merchants as possible in the states that are top 3 ranked.
At the end, on the 3 turns, the player with the most merchants in the first city-state gets to choose 2 of the influence tokens there. The player who came in second for that state receives the last influence there. The same is done for the second and third state. If there is a tie, then the player who has a merchant in the major city wins the tie. The cities that were at the top are now moved to the bottom. The influence tokens are then replaced at random by picking them out of the bag, which is supplied in the box.
After 6 rounds, or when there is no more influence token to take from the bag, the game ends and players calculate their points. The rulebook has a great example of this, and everything is very well explained. The games are fast and you can play a couple of games per hour. The player turn sequence is different every round and there is not much randomness in this game. I really had fun and I'm giving it a 7.5.
I really like the game. It's fast-paced, easy rulebook, and has a lot of strategy. I also love the fact that monopolizing one area of the board doesn't mean you're gonna win, since the city-states are always changing order. The one thing I didn't like is that it's only 3 or 4 players. I loved it. I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Wow, really? That's high.
Yep, it's a great game.